Welcome to More Living with Jim Brogan, your source of information for living the best years of your life your way. For more than a decade, host Jim Brogan and his expert guests have come together each week to share important news and advice that can impact the lives and well-being of those who are retired and those nearing retirement. Learn about issues like health and fitness, financial planning, Social Security benefits, investment advice, and more. And now, here's the host of More Living, Jim Brogan.
Good morning, East Tennessee, and welcome to More Living with Jim Brogan, where it's all about living the best years of your life your way. This is News Talk 98.7 WOKI. And, you know, we love to travel. And actually, in 2017, U.S. residents logged 1.8 billion person trips for leisure. And I don't know about you, February is always the time of year where I kind of like start getting anxious. Like I'm ready for winter to be over. Some of you may not be, but I'm ready for it to be over, especially when I walked out this morning and it was cold and wet. And, you know, we had that taste here, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago when it was so warm. It was so nice. But, you know, we tend to get tired of the cold weather and the gloomy days, and we look for an escape. And travel's so good for you. It disconnects us, gives us a break, lets us recharge, allows us to experience different culture, different places, create memories, and in many cases improve our mental and physical health. And with the increase of options and continual changes, though, it can be very difficult to determine where you should go, where to stay, and what to bring. And that's why we have with us a travel expert to answer your common travel questions, including things like, what are the best phone or PDA applications for your smartphone to help you with your travel? There's some really cool stuff out there. What about travel insurance? Should we use it or should we not? You know, those kinds of questions. But then also, where are some popular places that you may not be aware of? Where can you even a half day's drive from Knoxville? We're going to get into all of that stuff. So we're excited to have Jenny Canancer. She is the field manager for the downtown Knoxville, West Knoxville, and Maryville AAA locations. She grew up traveling in a military household, and then she started in the travel business in 1993, joined AAA in 2005, and she was honored as one of AAA's President's Elite in 2013 and 2016. Good morning, Jenny. Welcome to More Living. It's great to have you back.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we actually had Jenny on, I don't know, what do you think, 5 years ago maybe? We did a travel show?
Yep, 5 or 6 years ago, I think it was.
Yeah, so it's great to have you back. Let's kind of dive right in. More than ever, Jenny, people have a lot of options when they plan a vacation. You know, the all-inclusive resorts have become more popular again. You can create your own itinerary around a specific destination. Lately, you can have a service plan everything for you where you don't know the destination until right before you leave. What are some more common trends in travel that you see right now?
I think the biggest thing right now is people want experiences. They want something special. So they want activities, or they don't want to just go to Italy and just see the Vatican. They want a behind the scenes, you know, go there when it's closed special tour. You know, cooking classes, hiking tours. Those are the things that people are looking for now. More, they want to immerse themselves in the destination, not just say that I went and saw it.
So there's different ways to do that. How can you know, if you don't have hours and hours and I've always joked about financial planning, you know, what I do, that people spend more time planning their vacations than they do planning their financial plan. And it's just, but the point of that is, you know, I don't want to spend hours planning my vacation to get immersed in the culture. Because you're right, I want to do all that stuff. Like if I go to Rome, I want to do the closed, behind the scenes, closed access stuff and not wait in the huge lines. Well, how do you do that? How do you figure all that out without spending hours?
Well, I mean, I highly recommend using an agent. We are in the business every day. We know what's out there. We have trusted partners, and they have all of that mapped out for you. Whether you do a guided tour where you're with a group, whether it's a small group or a little bit larger group, there's now companies and packages that are put together that include those inclusions that you can't get just searching the internet to find them.
Yeah, you'd have to have some way to find out about that stuff, right?
Correct.
To get that behind-the-scenes access. Is it better to have a person there locally that kind of plans the stuff for you? Or like you as a travel agent, do you work with local people in different areas that how do you find out about that stuff?
Well, we work with preferred vendors. So companies like Alexander and Roberts, Insight Vacations, they then are putting together the tours with their local people in whatever country that you're in the destination. So when they have a tour of a particular place, they may have a local guide step on to give you information, or they're going to have local people that are running the city tours or running the Vatican tours. They have all those connections. For a company like AAA, we've vetted all the companies that we recommend. So you're making sure that you're with a company that is highly recommended and is there for you, for whatever may happen during the trip.
So overall, in the last 10 or 15 years, Jenny, how has the travel industry changed the most? Like, how's it evolved the most? I understand people are wanting experiences now, but what other things have changed the most?
The internet has changed it a lot. And I think mostly it's changed it for the good. The knowledge is all at your fingertips. So travelers are smarter. They will do a lot of research ahead of time, which is helpful when you're sitting down with an agent. You've researched kind of what you want to do, and then let us work out the logistics or what might work best for you. It's changed as, again, a lot more activities are included when you do a tour that's together. If you do cruising, it's very different than it was 15 or even 10 years ago, with the amount of activities on a ship, where they go. River cruising has exploded in the last few years as pretty much an all-inclusive destination, but at a much slower pace than an ocean ship.
What do you think is on the horizon? Any changes coming soon?
It's hard to know changes in the travel industry. The biggest swing, again, is kind of really niche travel, as far as, hey, I want to go to France and I want to do a wine tour that goes to all these wineries, or I want to go to Italy and I really want to immerse myself in the cooking culture. So cooking classes, over a span of time versus just one class. Groups of, hikers getting together or bikers getting together.
Oh, that sounds really, really fun. I'm ready to go somewhere. When picking a destination, it's kind of tough. And there's a lot of information. You can kind of get paralyzed. Mm-hmm. And there's so many places like my wife and I and our family, we'd like to go, but we just kind of have to prioritize. But what do you see right now, Jenny, as being some of the more popular travel destinations?
The popular travel destinations don't change, surprisingly, over time. Where we're located, the number one destinations are kind of Alaska, which is kind of a bucket list for everybody. It is absolutely gorgeous if you've never been there. Scotland, Ireland, Italy, river cruising, all of those are probably the top destinations. The popular exotic kind of destination right now that I would say is Iceland is kind of exploding. It's to the point where if you don't book Iceland far in advance, there's just no availability.
And Iceland is green and Greenland is icy, right? Isn't that the old saying?
Yes.
Right. Ireland and Scotland is really on our list, mm-hmm. for sure. My wife's been on an Alaska cruise. I have not. But we've really been, but see, I have a strong heritage in Ireland and I've never been there. But both of my grandfathers were 100% full Irish. And, my grandfather, as a matter of fact, when he was 7 on my mom's side, immigrated. That was when he and his family immigrated to the U.S. So they were, and then of course, Brogan is an Irish name, right? So I've always wanted to go there, and I want to go some of the Scotch places,
And I think that's why
Scotch distilleries and.
That's exactly why it's such a draw. So many people in the U.S. have a heritage to Ireland and Scotland. So, and they speak English, so it makes it easier. The Irish people are very, very friendly and warm and welcoming. So that keeps it in one of the top destinations always.
Well, and, I guess the popular show, Game of Thrones, a lot of that's shot in Scotland, right? You see These beautiful scenery. I mean, it's unbelievable. this scenery, and it's like, oh my gosh, I've got to go there.
And I'm sure that it definitely increases people's, wanting to go there more since the show is so popular.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Well, there's so many places to go. Tell you what, we're going to get we're going to get to our first break. When we come back, we're going to have more with Jenny about popular destinations and what draws people to them. Let's just kind of dream a little bit here. You might have a trip you're planning for next year. You might have a trip you're planning for this summer. You might not have planned, what's going to happen beyond spring break next month. So stay tuned as we visit with Jenny Knatzer. She's AAA regional manager. This is More Living with Jim Brogan, only on News Talk 98.7 WOKI.
During the week, Jim is a financial advisor, an author and speaker with an MBA from the University of Tennessee, who specializes in helping people in or near retirement plan for the next phase of their lives. You can reach Brogan Financial during the week at 865-862-6800 or on the web at broganfinancial.com. And now, here's Senior Market Advisor Magazine's 2011 National Advisor of the Year and host of More Living, Jim Brogan.
Are you planning your next vacation right now? This is a very popular time of year to be planning trips. And it's fun to think about, well, how can we be more efficient in how we plan our trips? We're visiting this morning with Jenny Knatzer. She is a AAA manager of 3 of the local offices here in town. As you listen to More Living here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI, I'm your host, Jim Brogan. And Jenny, you've traveled around the world, beginning very young. What are your what are some of your favorite places to travel, Jenny, that wouldn't necessarily be a popular destination? It wouldn't jump out, for us to think about, but it's one of your favorite places.
My all-time favorite place is actually in the Yukon. So you can go and do Alaska, but my recommendation is always include the Yukon. It's like stepping back in time. The little towns that you visit gold mining is still their number one industry. You can see that in the land. You can see that in the people, a lot of old buildings. But it's a slower pace, and it is absolutely beautiful.
Slower pace sounds good.
Yes.
What about anything else jumps out that's popular that you like a lot that's not necessarily popular?
That's probably my number one. I mean, I like popular places. I like things where there's a lot of things to do. I like, everywhere I've been, I like something about it. I like history. I like seeing old buildings when you go to Europe and just the history around it. I like the Caribbean. I'm a big fan of going to Mexico and just seeing the ruins and the history of the Mayans, and there's great snorkeling there. There's a lot of things. So it's hard for me to pick just one destination because every place I've been, I think I can tell you why I like it so much. So let's talk about Mexico real quick. There's been an awful lot made of the fact that it's not as safe. So how safe is it? How can you plan a safe trip to Mexico, or is it about staying in the proper areas? I mean, what's your perspective on that? There's been a lot in the press about that. A lot of people now are nervous to travel to Mexico. I think if you go to a popular tourist destination, and just when you travel anywhere, as long as you don't have your, as I call it, your vacation blinders on, you still have to be aware of your surroundings and what you're doing, but stay at a resort that's recommended, preferably by a professional. I mean, there's a lot of options you can look at online, but you really want to do a little bit of research about where you're staying, where you're going. I wouldn't necessarily recommend you pick some little tiny town in Mexico that you're going to drive to, but if you're going to go to Cancun or Cozumel or one of those popular tourist destinations and you stay at a well-known property, you should be fine as long as you don't go off the beaten path.
Is it okay to get off the properties, though, and go into the main kind of areas?
Yes, you're more than...
I guess out on the West Coast, you got Puerto Vallarta, you got Punta Mita, you've got, of course, Cabo. Mm-hmm. They used to say Cabo was the safest place to go, but now there's even been some issues there.
Yeah.
This is what you hear. But are those happening really in back alleys? Or, if you stay on the main roads and I don't know.
You hear the stories, and actually they're not as high as numbers as you might think when they come to tourists. The tourist areas are very safe. So you don't want to necessarily, I don't recommend you rent a car and you just drive around on your own. Do a tour where you're with a group, and that kind of thing. Stay if you're going to go shopping, go in the, in the town area, not necessarily, off to some side village somewhere like that.
Well, it's kind of funny. I was talking, I know someone that about 8 or 9 years ago, she moved to Cabo. She lived here in Knoxville. And she said, I'm going to move there for 5 or 6 years. And then her kids are out west. So she's like, then I may move back, to Washington State where one of her kids is. And she's still there. She said 5 or 6 years. It's been 8 or 9 years now. She's still there. She absolutely loves it. And I asked her about this a couple of years ago, or maybe a year and a half ago. And she said, well, Jim, she said, I mean, there's crime anywhere you go. And she said, would you ever travel to Chicago? I mean, that was kind of her example. And I thought that was actually a very good point. I mean, there's a lot of places you could travel in the United States. If you're not paying attention to what you're doing and where you're going, you could end up in a really, really bad spot. Right?
Oh, absolutely. I always say that. It doesn't matter where you're going. If you're there's lots of places in the U.S. I mean, you wouldn't go out and just wander around on your own necessarily where you're not familiar in Chicago or New York or
any big city, really.
Any big city. So why would you think that would be okay?
Yeah, I guess it's just what we know versus what we don't know. You know, it's a big U.S. city. We kind of know better. Whereas in Mexico, we're like, oh my goodness, what can I do? I guess it's kind of that kind of thing. Now, for those of you that listen to me for a while, I love Knoxville, Tennessee. I think it's a great place to live. I think it's one of the best places there is to live. There's so much to do here. There's an awful lot of places that are within a pretty quick drive of Knoxville, Tennessee. So with little mini vacations, Jenny, becoming increasingly popular, little 3-4 day getaways, what do you think are some really good destinations close to home that can really provide a great experience?
Well, this won't be any surprise to anybody. We live in a great spot for short drive trips. And we live in some of the places, we live close to a lot of the most popular destinations people want to go. You have Chattanooga, Nashville, Asheville. All of these great locations are within just a few hours drive of us and are some of the most popular day trips. And then a little further away, you can get, down to Atlanta. You can get to, Florida. So we're in a great location to be within a day's drive of almost anything.
And it's funny because I was talking to a friend of mine a few weeks ago about some of this kind of stuff. And, we've got Blackberry Farm right here in our backyard, which is such a beautiful place. And he was talking about Highlands, North Carolina. And, my wife and I had been there probably 15 years ago, but we hadn't been back. I mean, that is a gorgeous area. There's so many places in western North Carolina.
And northern Georgia as well, and around the Atlanta area. There's all kinds of cute little towns. You have Helena, Georgia, so you have all kinds of little places that we are so close to that we think, oh, one day we can go there. And we're only within a day's drive of a lot of places.
Yeah. Now, you're listening to More Living with Jim Brogan here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI, and we're visiting with Jenny Canancer. She's a regional manager with AAA Travel. And this is we were talking off air, this is one of the busiest times of year that people actually start planning their travel is here in the winter months. There are so many choices now, Jenny, of where to stay. We could stay at a hotel or resort, a bed and breakfast, and now, of course, the Airbnb has become so popular. VRBO's been around for a while. How do we choose the best lodging option? And does the destination impact a lot of that, do you think?
I think destination can make a big part of it. I think that also you need to look at, are you traveling as a family group? Are you going as a couple? What exactly are you wanting to get out of your vacation? Are you wanting to go to a resort that has a lot of amenities, a spa, a pool, a fitness center, and just relax on the beach? Or are you really wanting more intimate setting, renting a cabin or a home with your family and have a full kitchen and those type of things. So it really comes down to kind of what do you want to get out of that vacation and what is best for how many people that you have traveling.
We have several friends that have used Airbnb, just as an example. And my wife and I we've done VRBO. We haven't done Airbnb. And it's been a while since we've done VRBO. And our friends, by and large, have had fine experiences. But you hear these horror stories. Oh, they booked it and then they got a better offer. They canceled us 3 weeks before we got there. We were supposed to get there, or, and some of this is online. A lot of it's online. We got to a destination and things were not what they were represented. I mean, how safe is it? How dependable is it to book something through Airbnb or some of these other solutions?
I think you want to research the site itself too and see what is their terms and conditions on cancellation and stuff like that. I mean, Airbnb and VRBO and HomeAway is another good one, are all very popular. I'd stick to one that you know and have heard of versus one, because if you look them up online, there'll be 100 different websites that you can go to book a home or a room.
Yeah, but what about Airbnb itself? I mean, because I've heard stories.
I think overall, I've not heard a lot of horror stories per se. Most of the people that I know that have used it, and I personally have not used Airbnb, but I do have a good friend that uses it all the time and has never had a problem. She's actually in France right now in an Airbnb. So,
see, that makes me even more nervous to go to a foreign country and do Airbnb.
Yeah. The friend that I have, she uses it all the time, whether they're in the U.S. or in another country, but they want a local experience staying in somebody's home, and she doesn't care about amenities. They want to find their own restaurants, and they don't care about a pool or things like that. So that's why they do it.
Yeah. Well, renting a home, that's a great way to do it. Mm-hmm. You want to immerse yourself in the culture, right?
Oh, for sure.
We're visiting with Jenny Canancer of AAA as we're talking about travel. I'm sure many of you are planning trips coming up. When we come back, what are some really useful phone apps that you may or may not be aware of that could really help you be efficient with your travel? We'll also have our dollars and cents segment. How much can you truly and comfortably withdraw from your retirement savings to supplement your income in retirement, and be confident you won't run out of money before you run out of life? This is More Living with Jim Brogan. Stay tuned. This is News Talk 98.7 WOKI.
His weekly radio show, television news appearances, and adult education classes taught at the University of Tennessee and Pellissippi State Community College, Jim taps into his extensive knowledge and experience to address issues important to living your best retirement. Join Jim every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI, and visit him online at BroganFinancial.com. And now, here's the host of More Living, Jim Brogan.
Welcome back to More Living with Jim Brogan, right here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. It's that time of year where you start thinking about travel. Many of you are planning your upcoming spring break. You've probably already got it booked. What do you need to be aware of, especially if you're going to a foreign place? Make sure you're sensible and you don't take unnecessary risks. We're visiting with Jenny Canancer. She's a regional manager for AAA Travel, and she's been in the business a long time. Grew up as you're a military kid, right?
Yep.
Grew up traveling a lot, living in a lot of places of the world. So before we get back to Jenny, however, it is time for dollars and cents.
Want to be sure you are getting the most out of your retirement? For all the years of your retirement? That's the primary goal of More Living with Jim Brogan and our Dollars and Cents segment, where we provide you with an important financial tip that will help positively impact the quality of your life in retirement. And now, here's Jim with this week's Dollars and Cents tip.
How much can you safely withdraw from your retirement savings to supplement your income in retirement and be confident you're not going to have life left at the end of the money? That's today's Dollars and Cents topic. You know, there's this thing that's been out there for a long time, and it's called the 4% rule. And what it says is, starting when you first retire, you could start at a 4% distribution rate. So to use a round number, you got $1 million, you could draw $40,000 a year starting out to supplement Social Security and any other income sources you have. And then increase that distribution over time because of cost of living and inflation. Is that a good rule? There's been a lot published about this. It's kind of controversial. The original study that was developed was back from a financial planner from MIT, and it was published in 1994 based on historical data through 1992. So first, a lot has changed since 1992. I mean, that was a long time ago, right? That was 27 years ago. So, and you know, it said kind of a portfolio of 50 to 75% stocks balanced by bonds would do the trick. Be very, very careful and leery. Actually, if we use the tools we have available to us today and we measure historical markets and allow for the fact that we're in a very low interest rate environment today, a 60-40 traditional mix of stocks and bonds has over a 30% likelihood of failure, meaning if you retire in your mid-60s, you'll run out of money before you die. That's not a very good percentage. That's if you use the 4% rule. So there are some real concerns with the 4% rule. Some have suggested 3% is the new normal. Here's what I say. I say that it's all variable. It depends on a variety of factors. For example, what if you have a pension that is not inflation adjusted? So, you know, you don't get cost of living adjustments every year. So when you start out, you're at 4% or say 3.5% of withdrawals from your savings. But then your withdrawals from your savings have to increase at a disproportional rate to everything else because your pension is fixed. Well, that's a problem, right? That could affect all of this. But the biggest thing is understanding that traditional investment mix is probably not going to be very productive. So we have to understand, number one, the next 10 years, I don't expect market returns to be real robust when you look at balanced portfolios traditionally. Stocks, the outlook for the stock market over the next 10 years, I don't think is real robust. I think 5 to 6% a year, we'd probably take it right now if we could from today. We'd take it hands down, and when we look back 10 years from now. Now, I could be wrong. Nobody knows. But if I look at all the data, it suggests that. Then the bond market is very, very problematic because interest rates are so low. So either interest rates stay low and bonds don't make much, or interest rates go up and bonds do even worse. There's other alternatives to hedge portfolios other than traditional bonds. But we have to be very careful because the next 10 years are crucial. Your first 10 years of retirement is going to affect 80% of your eventual outcome in retirement. So if you live for 30 years in retirement, 80% of your outcome over the entire 30 years is determined in the first 10 years. So what if the next 10 years, choppy sideways markets? You got a problem with the 4% rule if you don't allow for it properly in your portfolio. The other thing is, number two, what if we have significant downturn in the market in the first 5 years of retirement? That could be even more devastating. Do you have an income plan to protect your risk investments when we have that next bear market? You should be able to draw income from stable, safer sources when we're in the midst of bear markets. So how do you protect your income when we have the next bear market? And then number three, if the returns aren't going to be great the next 10 years, but the next 10 years has such a big impact on your long-term success, you've got to have the other comprehensive pieces of a financial plan where you're maximizing every dollar you can. That's things like reducing the largest expense you and I will ever have, which is your income taxes, which you have more control of in retirement than at any other time in your life. It's picking a Social Security strategy that makes sense and considers spousal benefits, widow benefits, everything. All right. It's all of these other things. It's having the income plan that protects income in down markets. So it's a lot more than just picking the investments. It's all of the comprehensive planning. If you do all of that properly, I think many people can do closer to a 4% withdrawal rate, although you do have to look at, is a pension a big part of your income, or do you have an annuity and that fixed income never changes? That means over time, you're going to have a disproportionate need to draw from your savings. Starting out at 4% may not be really wise. Bottom line, you need a comprehensive plan of how you want the money to preserve your goals and achieve the outcomes you desire, and then build a plan around that includes all of these planning areas.
That's our Dollars and Cents segment for this week. You can find this week's Dollars and Cents segment and others by visiting BroganFinancial.com.
And do check us out online at BroganFinancial.com. My next upcoming class is at Pellissippi State out at Hardin Valley. It's on March the 5th and 12th, just a couple of weeks. If you'll go to PellissippiRetirementPlanning.com, you can get more information. It's two 2-hour sessions, 6:30 to 8:30 at the Hardin Valley campus right there in West Knoxville. And I'd love to see you there. I have 7 major areas that I cover. A big part of it is some of the stuff I just talked about in this Dollars and Cents segment. Again, PellissippiRetirementPlanning.com. It also shows my Blount County class, which is out in Blount County at their beautiful new campus out in Friendsville on March 26th and April 2nd. For all of my classes, you can go to BroganFinancial.com, click on classes at the menu at the top of the page, and in those 2-hour classes, for each class, I cover as much information as I can to really equip you to make informed and prudent decisions that can impact the quality of your life in retirement. Today, we're visiting with Jenny Canancer. She's a AAA manager for their travel department, for their travel, AAA travel, and we're talking about it's a great time of year. Everybody's planning their travel. We're thinking about spring break, but many of us are planning trips in the summer or even next year. Now, all-inclusive resorts, Jenny, really dropped in popularity in the Great Recession back in 2008, but customer demand is again increasing. What do you think draws people to this style of vacation, and how have all-inclusives changed to continue to attract today's traveler?
I think why they're so popular is they're completely relaxing. Everything is included. You don't have to worry. You know that you've paid almost everything up front. And the way they've changed over the years, for one, there's a lot more of them than there ever have been before. But some of them, they include other things. Such it used to be just your hotel, your meals, your drinks, and that was kind of it. You had a pool, you had all of that. A lot of them now have things like nightly shows, parties, depending on the day of the week. They partner with, they might have 3 or 4 of their branded hotels close together. Excuse me. And you can eat at any of the restaurants, by connected properties. And a lot of them have excursion desks, so you can plan excursions. Some have things included. Some you purchase those. So I think the biggest draw for those is, you work hard all week, and you have some people get a couple weeks of vacation a year, and you want to go somewhere and just chill out and relax and not have to worry about anything. And that's the biggest draw, I think, on an all-inclusive.
And I will say, sometimes when you go to a nice resort that's not all-inclusive, sometimes towards the end, I feel kind of nickel and dimed. I mean, I'll never forget going to a Caribbean destination. I don't want to say where it was. It's very popular, but it's expensive. And I felt nickel and dimed, and I got tired of paying for an $8 hot dog. And I'll never forget, I went through the line at breakfast when we were checking out, and I wanted to substitute out like a banana for yogurt. And got into some nickel and diamond, and it just kind of wore on me. So I think that's one of the attractive pieces of it. That's one thing that's nice about a cruise, I guess, right? I mean, those are all included. So you get there, and okay, I've done it, and you can buy a card to get the drinks, you can buy the upgrade or whatever, but you don't feel like you're getting nickel and dimed. I have noticed more of the cruise lines have started. They've started putting all these things, though, that, okay, well, if you go to Starbucks, it's an upcharge. If you go here, it seems like they've started to do a little bit more of that. And I think they need to be kind of careful with that personally.
I think if you look at some of the cruise lines, and Royal Caribbean is a perfect example of this. So they try to give you as many things are included. So I use ice cream as an example all the time. And coffee is a good one as well. So if you're on the ship, soft served ice cream is included all day long. If you want a hand-dipped ice cream with all the toppings, there's a charge for that. If you want coffee or all of that, you can have it all day long for free, included with your price. If you want
just
Starbucks,
not Starbucks.
They have a Starbucks that you can go to and purchase.
Yeah,
so it's about options.
That's pretty reasonable. So I think just having all that where you don't have the, it's done. You show up. You might have a few things here and there, but and then you don't feel nickel and dimed.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When we come back, we are going to get into the travel or the phone apps. What are some really good phone apps, and how do we be efficient? What do we need to be traveling? Like, how do we focus on the necessary things we should be taking versus the things that we maybe don't need to be taking? How do we what's really necessary, and what are some great tips Jenny has for us? So don't go away. This is More Living with Jim Brogan on News Talk 98.7 WOKI.
Thank you for listening to More Living with Jim Brogan. If you miss any of today's show or want to listen to it again, visit BroganFinancial.com, where you can access the podcast and other educational materials to help you in your journey through retirement. And now, here's Senior Market Advisor Magazine's 2011 National Advisor of the Year and host of More Living, Jim Brogan.
Welcome back to More Living. I'm Jim Brogan. This is News Talk 98.7 WOKI. We're talking to Jenny Knatzer. She is Regional Manager for AAA Travel. We're talking about upcoming travel tips. Big time of year to be planning that kind of stuff. And let's talk about the smartphones. It's really changed the way we live and, of course, the way we travel. There's a lot of cool applications, some to get us from point A to point B, many others for local tips. What are some 2 or 3 travel apps that you find to be especially useful?
My number one travel app is actually with Allianz Travel Insurance. Even if you don't have their insurance, I highly recommend that you download their Travel Smart app, just because it has so much information. If you have a travel protection policy with them, it has the information. You can file a claim. You can check flight status from there. But it's the other things to me that are so great to have, especially if you're traveling internationally. It gives you gives you hospital information, pharmacies, police numbers, embassy numbers. It has a translator that will translate a range of things. Mostly it's medical and first aid in case you're in an emergency, but it translates 18 languages, I believe it is.
Before we move on to some other apps, let's talk about that real quick on the insurance, because I want to be sure to hit that. That's become more and more popular, travel insurance. Are you a big fan of travel insurance?
100%. I do not think you should travel without some type of travel insurance. We recommend Allianz because it is the largest travel protection company in the world, and they will take very, very good care of you. You never know what's going to happen. And if you haven't read your cancellation policies closely, the closer you get, the more you can lose. And you want to be protected not only before you go, if there's a reason that you can't go, but you also want to be protected if you're in another country.
Yeah, and you know what flipped it for me a couple of years ago? I was on a trip. It wasn't out of the country. It was in California, where a guy had jumped off into this, it was a waterfall, and he had jumped off, and he fractured his lower back. And he had to be transported by a private plane to Chattanooga, Tennessee. And he had travel insurance, and it covered the private plane because he had coverage to get him where he needed to go for like up to $500,000. And then one of my children had a friend who's, I think it was a grandparent, was traveling in Europe and had a horrible thing happen and was going to pass away, and they flew him home in a private plane. And just that evacuation coverage alone, to me, and we've all had situations where when we were going on a big trip out of country, and we had an uncle pass away 2 days before the trip. So, there's a lot of usefulness to that, I guess, is the point.
Absolutely. And people don't realize, too, when you're traveling internationally, that some hospitals, some emergency things will not even talk to you without upfront payment. So if you have good travel insurance, they will step in and cover those costs, and you don't even have to worry about it. Yeah,
that's good stuff. What other travel apps?
Some of my favorite, there's another one, Viator.com, which is Viator.com. They do day trips. They can do tours. So if you want you need transfers from the airport to your hotel, or you want a snorkeling trip, they can plan all of those. It's a great app to use for that. In the United States, I'm a big fan of Waze for directions and driving, because it not only gives you the directions, but it also tells you if there is slow traffic or an accident or a pothole in the road.
And that's because, and it's dependent on how many people use it. And in clustered, the more urban it is, the more people are using those things.
Yes.
And my family went to California a year and a half ago in October, and we used that to get around Los Angeles.
Yes.
And oh my gosh, now it took us on some crazy zigzags, but we avoided a lot of horrible traffic using that app.
Yeah, it's a great app to use. If there's traffic, you can go an alternate route. The other one to use if you're traveling by car in the U.S. is Gas Buddy. So it tells you where the nearest gas station is. It tells you what the prices are, so you can plan a little better on stopping to get gas at a decent price.
Great tips. What about efficiency? What's necessary? Necessary items when we travel can become subjective. What is something, Jenny, you always travel with? And what are some common things savvy travelers take that people that aren't as savvy don't think of taking?
Well, I kind of made a list because there's a couple things that I always travel with. First, if you don't have an RFID wallet or bag or, purse, I would highly recommend that, just because that secures your credit cards and that side of stuff from theft. But I also just some common things to travel with is, think backup things. So a backup pair of glasses, if you need to have those, if you have another pair laying around, a big scarf or something that you can use as a blanket on the airplane. Liquids, we all know, is difficult on a plane, so take hand wipes instead of hand sanitizer sometimes. Compression socks are always good. And then, you want to go through your apps on your phone and make sure you have the apps that you're going to need. Take pictures of things. Have pictures of your hotel address or the back of your credit card in case your credit card is stolen. You have the numbers to call on those.
That's a great tip. You mentioned the hand sanitizer or the hand wipes, like sanitized hand wipes.
Yes.
One thing I noticed, and I've been doing it as much as I can, as much as I can remember ever since, because I saw somebody on a plane do it. I mean, how many germs are on our plane? And wiping down the armrest and the tray in front of you, the back and what folds down. I mean, what kind of germs? And actually, the first time I did it, Jenny, I had the steward, the flight attendant. She came up to me and said, "You are so smart to be doing that."
Absolutely.
The flight attendant said that. I can't imagine. We would hear a story, but think about how many germs are in these things.
And that's with any travel. So you think you got off the plane and then you went to get your luggage and then you got in a taxi, and just you're using those wipes for your own hands makes all the difference. You can also wipe down your luggage, who's been handling everything between when you dropped it off.
Jenny, how can people get hold of you or your office with AAA Travel? I guess if you're a AAA member, you can use AAA Travel, right?
Absolutely. You can reach us at 865-637-1910. That will ring to the 2 Knoxville offices, and we can get you in contact with a seasoned agent.
So that's 637-1910. 1910. And what about online?
AAA.com.
Just AAA.com, and then click on travel links, I guess. Okay, that's Jenny Can Answer. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. It's fun to start talking about trips, especially in the gloomy February, rainy, cold, and everybody's planning it, so thanks so much for taking time to be with us.
Thank you very much.
Today we've discussed leisure, because greater leisure provides for more living, so you can live the best years of your life your way. Be sure to check us out online at broganfinancial.com. You can follow us at Twitter and Facebook. You can also follow my blog. And be sure to check out my upcoming classes. I'm at Pellissippi State March 5th and 12th at the Hardin Valley campus. I'll be out in Friendsville in Blount County in late March and early April. And I'll be back in Knoxville at the University of Tennessee in May. For the Pellissippi classes, you can go to PellissippiRetirementPlanning.com. For all my classes, go to BroganFinancial.com. Click on the link for classes at on the menu bar at the top. Thanks for tuning in. This is More Living with Jim Brogan, only on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. Have a blessed week, and go Big Orange. Let's get them Cats.